Powered by Riverside FM.
Man, there's been a lot of people that have been wanting me to talk about the Shedeur Sanders thing this past NFL draft. And as I've said multiple times before, that man, this is a Minnesota Vikings channel. We want to uplift our Minnesota Vikings nation, our Skull Nation, UP Nation. Talk about our team, the Purple. We got our new future franchise quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, who's going to be QB1 to start the season. And everything is looking good for the Minnesota Vikings. You got the Minnesota Timberwolves in the playoffs, man, doing some really good things. They're up 3-1 against the Los Angeles Lakers. We're good on that front. But I think there are times where there are important topics that come up, and it affects all of us, UP Nation. This is not. Just because Shedeur got drafted by the Cleveland Browns and he played for Colorado and we're kind of distant from that doesn't mean that we can't talk about or think about some of these topics. That's why I wanted to bring it to you. I wanted to bring it to you today when you're talking about Shedeur Sanders and just get your opinions on what's happened. It's amazing when you have these tough topics, man. That you always fall on one side of the fence. Like you have your Shedeur supporters who felt like he was wronged and, you know, he was blackballed from the league and there was a lot of collusion going on and owners got together and said, hey, we're not going to draft Shedeur, and they didn't like his dad and there's a chance that it could be a racial thing. And, you know, all of this stuff when it comes to Shedeur, when you are a pro Shedeur supporter, that is kind of where your mind is going to lie. You know, and if you're an anti-Shedeur supporter, you're going to throw the fact up that he failed the whiteboard test during the combine. You're going to talk about his body language a little bit. You're going to talk about how he was disinterested in his interviews. You're going to talk about how arrogant he is, how braggadocious he is. You're going to talk about his gold chains. You're going to talk about his extravagant parties at his house for the draft, that it shouldn't have done that stuff. That's where your mind goes when you are an anti-Shedeur Sanders supporter. And that's how the mind works, man. The brain is a fickle thing. It's very layered. It is why our divorce rate is so high in the U.S. It's like when you become biased, you're going to slide everything your way to make people try to think your way. A lot of people just don't have the ability to look at things from all perspectives. I deal with people every day, and they just have a hard time. It's almost like being a Green Bay Packer fan, and, you know, the Packers got swept last year by the Minnesota Vikings, but if you ever talk to a Packer fan, there's always going to be some excuse about why they got swept. Instead of saying, you know what, you had the better team last year, your coach is better, you played better in those two games, and that be the end of the story. It's always going to be some excuse. Jair Alexander was out both games and all this kind of stuff, all this kind of crap. With the Shedeur Sanders story, UP Nation is really the same way. The way I look at it, people are going to say, well, why are we spending so much time on Shedeur Sanders? There have been players that have fell in the draft before. And see, this is where you start to get slighted. This is where that brain starts to work. Shedeur's slide was unprecedented. There has never been a slide like what Shedeur Sanders has. That's why it was news. You had on some people's boards, you had him as the number one pick. On most boards, I think people had him as number 2, number 3, and possibly the number 2 quarterback drafted. But I don't think there was a board out there that had him as a 5th-round pick. I can guarantee you that. So when people wonder, why are we focusing on Shedeur? Number one, because it's news. This is unprecedented. This is not comparable to any other slide that you've seen before. People talk about the slide that Aaron Rodgers had. Man, Aaron Rodgers was picked to be a top 5 pick, top 10 pick at worst, and he slid to the end of the 1st round. Like, that was a slide, but it was nowhere near the 5th round, UP Nation. Like, you can't even compare those. See, I think when it comes to Shedeur, when you start to explain his slide, I think there's a big pie chart of blame, so to speak. And everybody's got a piece in it. Everybody's got a piece in it. You may not want to hear it. You may not want to admit it, but everybody's got a piece in it. That has been my explanation of his slide to anybody that I've talked to about this current situation. See, I think Shedeur has a hand in it as well. See, here's the thing about people sometimes. Like, I think sometimes you have to play the game. Like any of us, when we go to a job interview, odds are we're going to dress up for that job interview. We don't have to. And even if this is not something that we normally wear, don't we do it to get the job? So in essence, that might not be part of our daily routine. That might not be part of our makeup. But we do what we have to do to get the job that we want so we can collect the paycheck. And this is where I think Shedeur falls short. And here's where I think he's getting the best advice. The way he carries himself is not wrong. I don't have a problem with the way he carries himself, but somebody may look at it as being a little bit too brash, a little bit too entitled, a little bit too braggadocious. And if you're trying to impress somebody to get a paycheck, or trying to impress somebody to be a top 5 pick in the draft, or trying to impress somebody where they bestow upon you the franchise leadership title in any specific locker room, I think you got to play the game. Like, if that's what you want. If you're one of these people that are like, I'm going to be as genuine as I can be, then you've gotta deal with the consequences that come with stuff like that. Like, if you don't go to a job interview, because if you don't go to a job interview and you don't dress up for that job interview, you don't have to dress up, but you're going to pay the consequences, because odds are you're probably not going to get the job, and that's the deal. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you're wrong, but then you can't expect to get the job. And so you have to carry yourself a certain way to impress the people that you need to impress to be able to get the job that you want. If you come into those interviews and you're not prepared, you're opening the door up to be disappointed. If you come into those interviews and don't know what you're supposed to know and you're not impressing, then odds are you're not going to get what you want. This is the game that you have to play to get the millions of dollars and the status that you want. And if you don't want to play that game, then you're going to start to slip and you're going to start to fall. Prime time, his dad, I won't go through all of them, but a year prior came out and made some strong comments about who he was going to play for, who he wasn't going to let his son play for. He knows what's behind the curtain in the NFL. And for the life of me, I don't understand the purpose. Who's going to hear this stuff? The owners are going to hear this stuff. The GM is going to hear this stuff. The coaches are going to hear this stuff. Deion Sanders is influential still in football today. That's why he got hired at Colorado. Because he has an influence over young people. He has an influence over people that are still playing professional football now. So when you start making these comments about where your son is going to play, how he's going to play, what organization he's going to play for, people are hearing that, man, and it's going to make them pause. See, that's the optics. You can't get rid of that. You can't support Deion and say, hey, you say what you want to say, you be you, and not expect that to affect the decision-making that these organizations are going to make. Man, I've been a high school basketball coach. I've been a college basketball coach. And the worst thing that you could ever have in the program is a helicopter parent. Everybody loves their kids, man. Everybody is passionate for their kids. But the one thing that most coaches watch out for, I know I watch out for, is a helicopter parent. I don't want those parents' verbiage, their narratives in my locker room at all. It destroys teams. It stops coaches and organizations from being able to get things done. And although you may find a spot at lower levels to have a person like this be a part of the team, you raise an eyebrow and it causes a red flag when you see these parents coming a mile away. It just gives you a little bit of hesitation. So for the life of me, I don't understand why people can't see. They give Deion a pass and they say, well, man, Deion is Deion is Deion. Well, Deion is Deion. But if Deion continues to be Deion, there's going to be consequences for it, man. Whether it's right or wrong, this is the world that we live in. There's going to be consequences for it. So as soon as Deion opened his mouth and said, my son is not going to play, the red flag went up. Therein lies the hesitation for teams to draft. Because those teams are asking themselves, is it worth the trouble? Is it worth the trouble? You're going to have part of the people out there who are a part of the pie chart of blame are people that are trying to spit the narrative that Shedeur isn't that good. Man, you're absolutely out your mind. I want to know what film you've been watching and what games you've been watching. This young man went to an HBCU and tore it up at Jackson State. Was a champion at Jackson State. And then he transferred to Colorado to be with his dad who had taken the job at Colorado, and they flipped that program. They walked into a 1-11 program. And they've been winning ever since. Are they national champions? No, but the program was in bad shape, man. They flipped that program. That program hadn't won in years. And a big part of that, yeah, there was a lot of people. It's a team sport, but a big part of that was Shedeur Sanders. Flipping that thing. He was Offensive Player of the Year in the Big 12. Like, you don't get these titles with being garbage. I'm trying to figure out the people that are saying he's not that good. I want you to show me film. If you could put it in the comments, some video or something to show, a lot of his flaws that people are saying that he should have been a 5th-round pick, that he's not that good. I can see you saying that he's not the number 1 pick in the draft, but to say he's not that good and that's the reason why he fell to the 5th round is foolish. If this was a court of law, you have no evidence. That's just some narrative that you're trying to create. Go back and watch Shedeur Sanders highlights and go watch his game film at Colorado. The young man was far from garbage. So the people that are putting that narrative out, they are part of the pie chart of blame. They're part of it. And then you have these people that talk about there's been collusion going on in the NFL. And I try to stay away from the word collusion because I think people use that too much. To be in collusion with anything, man, if it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. There are people out there that think the NFL owners got together and somehow they organized this thing and they said, hey, no one's going to draft Shadur Sanders. Now, just on the surface, how hard that would be. See, these owners are about making money. And if they felt like Shadur Sanders could help them guaranteed make a dime, they're going to do it. I'm not saying that there are a bunch of owners out there that don't think alike, because I think a lot of them do. And some of them are probably self-colluded, if that's a word, where they don't have to organize anything because, like Stephen A. pointed out on First Take, they all think alike in the first place. So you don't have to pick up the phone and organize anything. But if you're on the side of them colluding or having collusion, man, just sit back and, honestly, instead of just saying that, just sit back and think of the level of work that it would take. Like, you would have to get to all the owners. You would have to get to all of the general managers. You would have to get to all of the coaches, and you would have to get through all of the scouting departments for everybody to be on board with not doing this thing. And you better hope that your conversations are so good when you compartmentalize that nobody talks, that there's no leaks, that you are colluding to keep Deion Sanders' kid out of the draft. See, I just think it's too hard. And I think the reason why he slid, again, is a little bit of everything. It doesn't have to be collusion. Like, I just think collusion is such a hard thing to put together. I'm not saying that it doesn't go on in other places. I just think with this Shadur Sanders thing, I mean, there are other things that attribute it to the slide. I'm not saying that a little bit of hate from the owners and teams wasn't a part of it. I just don't think everybody was a part of it. I mean, think about this. And I'll hit people with this all the time. You talk about collusion, then that had to filter down to Mike Tomlin, right? Mike Tomlin's one of the most successful black coaches in the league. So for him to be a part of some sort of collusion against Deion Sanders' kid, I just don't buy that. I don't see that. Because if you go with the collusion theory, Mike Tomlin had to be a part of it. You can't exclude Mike Tomlin because they are quarterback needy. Right? So you have one of the most successful black quarterbacks in the league. Never have had a losing season. Has a good relationship with the Sanders family. And so when the collusion came to his department, is Mike Tomlin the type of person that's going to capitulate to that? Man, I just don't see that. That's why I go away from the whole collusion bit. Then there are people that talk about, they make it try to seem like they spin the narrative that Shedeur is coming in with a whole lot of baggage. Man, the only baggage that Shedeur is coming in with is being the son of Deion Sanders, and people don't like his dad as much. They don't like him because he's brash, cocky, confident, whatever adjective you want to use for Deion Sanders. That's what really people don't like about him. What has Shedeur ever done, man? What has Shedeur ever done? Give me an incident where the kid has messed up in school. Give me an incident where the kid has messed up in terms of the law or done something inappropriate outside of football. Like, just give me an example where if you bring him in, and if this is a character thing, where you have issues with his character. What has he done? I know that there are guys that have come into the league that have had major baggage. I mean, man, before Baker Mayfield got drafted, he was on camera running from the police for a disorderly conduct charge or something, but he was running away from a cop. And yet he was drafted #1 overall by the Cleveland Browns. See, I'm trying to figure out when baggage works and when it doesn't work. The same organization that was hesitant on bringing in Shedeur Sanders, but they did. I give them a lot of credit. It's the Cleveland Browns. But aren't you the same guys that took on Baker Mayfield, and aren't you the same guys that took on Deshaun Watson? With all his baggage coming to Cleveland, I mean, when you signed Deshaun Watson, there were protests in Cleveland not to put him on the team. But you had no hesitation. You had no hesitation in bringing in Deshaun Watson, man. So now all of a sudden, whatever hesitations you have, essentially what you're saying is whatever hesitations you have about Shadur Sanders outweigh any hesitations that you had about Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson. And I can even go back to Johnny Manziel, when you knew who Johnny Manziel was when he came out of college. That's why I don't buy the whole narrative and the whole baggage thing, because we've seen this before. There have been plenty of guys that have had baggage in our sporting industry, and we ignore it. You look at Urban Meyer, who is the coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I want you to go back and look at all of the incidences of inappropriateness by what's supposed to be the face of the franchise in terms of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Out at bars with young ladies, putting his hands where he wasn't supposed to put his hands, not flying back with the team, having an altercation with a kicker. And the first chance he gets when he leaves the Jacksonville Jaguars, what does he do? Fox comes in and they sweep him up to be an analyst for college football. It's funny how we weigh ethics and morals sometimes and not other times. And again, I'm not even trying to compare ethics and morals. I'm asking you, what has Shedeur ever done for him to drop? And again, it's easy to say because this, when you hear people say this, it's trying to clean it up. And they're trying to bank on you not having watched games and not know what you know about college football. The person that thinks you're ignorant out there will say, well, he's just not that good. And again, I want you to provide evidence. Show me some stats. Show me some videos. Show me where the football team was before he got there. Show me where the football team was when he was there. And I am interested to see what they are next year without him there. Will the Colorado Buffaloes sustain the success that they had the last 2 years when Shedeur was at the helm playing quarterback? See, if you are a casual fan and you hear, well, he's not that good anyway, you start to believe in it because that's all you get. You don't do your research. You don't watch the sport. You just kind of watch the sport every now and then. But don't let people fool you. Show me the evidence that he's not that good. The epic slide by Shedeur Sanders shouldn't have happened. It was a bad look for the NFL, the most powerful sport in the world. It was shameful. You had a defensive coordinator's kid from the Atlanta Falcons call Shedeur, pretend to be the general manager of the New Orleans Saints, saying that he got picked. Shedeur Sanders said, I've been waiting for this. The voice on the other side of the phone said, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer, pranking him. And see, this is my whole problem that I had with this weekend when it came to Shedeur and why I'm talking about it. This was not about him sliding back to the first round, the fifth round, even though I didn't agree with that. I just think so many people took pleasure in the demise of a kid that's done nothing but excel on the football field. People took enjoyment of it. The young man that picked up the phone to call him and prank him, did you see the enjoyment? If you guys haven't seen the film, I say go watch it. That kid took enjoyment out of pranking Shadur Sanders and making him feel bad. There was a level of enjoyment there. The ratings for the NFL draft was higher than it's been ever, 40% higher than it's been in a long time. I'll just say that. I don't know about ever, but it's been a while since the ratings for the draft all weekend has hit that high. Usually the ratings are pretty good on the first night, but for all 3 nights, man, it was great. That was the Shedeur Sanders effect. Remember last year when Caitlin Clark was tearing up the WNCAA tournament and the ratings went through the roof? They outdrew the men. That was the Caitlin Clark effect. This weekend was the Shadur Sanders effect. People enjoyed his demise, enjoyed his embarrassment, enjoyed the awkwardness of the situation. The kid that made the phone call did. That's why the ratings were high. People wanted to see how far he would drop, what he would look like on camera when he got the call, or if he didn't get the call, or even if he got drafted at all. Times are just changing, man. And that's the part that I can't get down with. I can't get down with the part where people take enjoyment in someone else's embarrassment and demise. And that's what this was all about this past weekend. The Minnesota Vikings have their future franchise quarterback. I'm really happy about that. The Cleveland Browns, well, their quarterback room is kind of a mess. They gave a guaranteed contract to a quarterback that had a lot of baggage coming in, that's popped his Achilles twice, that won't play next year, and he has the highest contract in the history of the NFL, guaranteed. And the Cleveland Browns, as they sat back smugged and could barely show any enthusiasm for drafting Shadur Sanders, they have to deal with that. They have to deal. They can't get rid of Deshaun, or they're going to deal with a lot of dead cap money. Those smart guys are going to have to deal with that. Hopefully, Shadur Sanders will get an opportunity, which I think he will, with the Cleveland Browns, because their quarterback room is not that strong. I believe that this was a weak quarterback draft, and I have no hesitation in thinking that Shadur Sanders, and I think Mel Kiper agrees with me, Shadur Sanders was the top quarterback in this draft. What that means, I don't know, because the field was so weak, and the guys that got drafted ahead of him were a joke. Jalen Milroe, if you had problems with Tim Tebow, then you should have a problem with Jalen Milroe. Tim Tebow was not the athlete that Jalen Milroe is, but Jalen Milroe can't throw the ball. He's going to wash out in the NFL. He's going to wash out. I don't know why people were so high on him in this draft. People were talking about Cleveland Browns should take him. And, man, did you watch Jalen Milroe play at Alabama? that young man is going to have to learn to throw the ball at the level that an NFL quarterback should have to be able to throw the ball. I don't know why people put blinders on when it comes to these players. He can't throw the football. He is going to wash out. Cam Ward is Cam Ward. I don't think he's anything extraordinary, but I think he's going to have the opportunity to be good. Would I have chosen him number one? Probably not. But if you need a quarterback and you're quarterback deficient, whether it's a weak draft or not, you have to take it. So I hope Shedeur gets his chance. It's going to be fun to watch. You know, he's at a place where, man, it could go either way. The Browns don't have a track record of developing and sticking with quarterbacks. That's why I don't understand the smugness of the brass of the Cleveland Browns when they were asked by Mary Kay Cabot, why weren't they enthusiastic in the room about picking Shedeur? That's nothing but a bad news Bears organization in the first place. So, you know, any analysis that they give about anybody, you can't trust it because you can't trust the Cleveland Browns to do the right thing. That's on the real. And I have love for the team. I grew up rooting for them, but I'm just real about it. I don't put blinders on when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. So that's my take on the Shedeur Sanders thing, man. I'm not on one side of the fence thinking that Shedeur was mistreated and that was the biggest part of the fall. I'm also am not on the fence where people are saying that he's so bad, he sucks, he can't play the game, body language, bad interviews, all that stuff, because you're lying if you don't say that the vitriol for his dad didn't play a fact in it, the fact that you think the kid is entitled and arrogant didn't play a fact in it. But you have the choice to draft who you want to draft. That's what the NFL draft is all about. You shouldn't be painted into a corner and forced to draft somebody because people have them ranked in the top 5, top 10. You have the right to draft who you want to draft. But all those teams that are quarterback needy, all those teams that are quarterback needy, I don't want to hear it in the middle of the season when you don't have your quarterback situation solved. Pittsburgh Steelers. While you're sitting around waiting for Aaron Rodgers, who don't want to play for you, apparently. So now your quarterback room and your quarterback situation is in flux. And I say, if you believe in the collusion stuff, then everybody has to be a part of it. There can't be one piece that's missing. And if you say that there is collusion out there, then Mike Tomlin had to be a part of it. It's the only explanation. It's the only explanation for not bringing in a quarterback the caliber of Shedeur Sanders when you needed one. If you had Aaron Rodgers in the fold, that's different. Maybe you don't waste a draft pick on a quarterback, or you find a way to plug a hole somewhere else with your quarterback situation. But you passed on a quarterback that could have helped your franchise for no good reason at all. But if you buy into the collusion, then you have to say Mike Tomlin was a part of it. And I don't know if a lot of people are ready to go there. That's why I just don't think that there was any collusion. So that's my take on the Shedeur Sanders thing, man. You know, taking a little bit of detour from the Minnesota Vikings and the Minnesota Timberwolves only because people reached out to me and they wanted to hear my thoughts on Shedeur Sanders. So again, man, if people have things that they want me to talk about on UP Nation, we won't talk about them all the time because, like I said, 95% of the time, this is a Vikings channel, Minnesota Timberwolves channel. This is just what we do. But when there are important topics to go over, like Shedeur Sanders and the thing that happened this weekend, which was unprecedented, man, I'm not afraid to talk about it on the UP. Please hit that like and subscribe button. And as always, UP Nation, we are going to make sure that we see you when we see you. Great week ahead. Skol, UP Nation. Skol.